Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The heavyweight legend George Foreman has died at the age of 76, and the boxing world is now in mourning. So Foreman, a very colourful career, being a very spiteful puncher in his early heavyweight career, became a champion, lost to Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, retired not so long after, was retired for 10 years, had a second career, and obviously reinvented himself to some degree. Even personality-wise, very different. He had become an ordained minister while he was retired. Became a heavyweight champion, the oldest heavyweight champion at the age of 45 in 1994, flooring Michael Moorer. Can't forget also, he was an Olympic champion. And George Foreman, very colourful character, and it's kind of almost sad to say he may be remembered by a much younger generation as the George Foreman grill guy rather than for his boxing career. But obviously here on this channel we focus on the heavyweights, and George Foreman did a lot for the sport. Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali, a very huge event for the sport of boxing. And George Foreman dies at the age of 76. He will be missed. He will be remembered. And I think many people, depending on how long you've lived, will have different versions of George Foreman that they remember. I wasn't alive to sort of view the George Foreman who looked like this, and obviously was a very spiteful character in the ring. I remember the George Foreman that was a bit older, more jovial, and especially when he took the crown in 1994. I was like 12 years old, so I remember a very different version of Foreman. And the older he got, it was like a jolly, gentle giant. So Foreman with his accolades, Foreman with what he did for the sport, and probably one of the best boxing movies, biopics in the past 15 or 20 years was the Foreman movie, I should say. And if you haven't seen that, it is well worth a watch about his life and times. And I think some of the real interesting parts of it is the bits where he was actually retired and had a calling from God to become a minister and leave the sport of boxing. So, yeah, George Foreman, 76 years old. He is now passed on. He will be remembered. He won't be forgotten. And no one has been able to emulate his feat of becoming the oldest heavyweight champion. And I think, as the article by Boxing Scene reaffirms, that no one has been able to emulate that success at his age of 45 to become a champion. So who knows if that record will hang around for much longer. It's already gone more than 30 years, but George Foreman, I mean, it's a real loss for the boxing world. He was still a character right up into his latter years, and obviously he acted as a commentator in after his retirement from the sport, and especially you could hear the dulcet tones in the 2000s especially. George Foreman, RIP, dead at 76. And the promoter who put on Rumble in the Jungle, and obviously very familiar with Foreman, Bob Arum, he's paid tribute to George Foreman, saying, "George was a great friend to not only myself, but to my entire family. We've lost a family member and are absolutely devastated." Rumble in the Jungle, obviously about 50 years ago at this point. And you have Lou DiBella, another promoter, paying tribute, saying they don't make them like this anymore. It was the privilege of my career to have known and spent time with these giants of boxing and of life. When these three reigned, they were among the most recognizable people on the planet. Hope George is having some laughs and sharing war stories with his old friends in paradise. R.I.P. George Foreman. Moving on, so Hemi Ahio has returned to the ring. So he was in a fight on the Kambosos undercard. It was off TV. Lou DiBella, who promotes him, has actually posted this clip to social media, to his Twitter. So he got a win against a Thai fighter with an unpronounceable name. So hopefully we see Ahio back out soon, and not also just on the off-broadcast portion. So right now, record of 24-1. Hard to know what's happening with Ahio. It's been a little bit light in terms of his activity of late, but we'll have to see what happens for the rest of 2025. Did have a win against Lucas Brown. That was also off TV from memory. That was about a year or so ago. Teremoana Jr. was also on the same George Kambosos undercard. He got the win in his fight in the first round against James Singh. His promoter, Eddie Hearn, after it, he said he's going to move fast and not many people are going to stand up to him. He could feature on the May 13 undercard headlined by Jai Opetaia next, but we really want to take him on a world tour, taking him in the UK and the USA to get in that world-class sparring and experience, along with vital rounds to help him progress into the big time. So in that fight with James Singh, actually Singh landed a couple of decent right hands and Teremoana Jr. just literally, it was like no effect, just walked through it. Ultimately overwhelmed his opponent, who couldn't take much after Teremoana was just all over him with shots. So this one ended in the first round, as I say. Martin Bakole's trainer, Billy Nelson, has had a little bit of a reimagining, or he's trying to reshape the narrative around his fighter's loss with Joseph Parker, saying of Bakole, he had minimal training before that Parker fight, and he still landed some big shots on Joe and hurt him twice. It was a bit of a desperation punch from Parker in the end. Let me tell you something. Joseph Parker would never beat Martin Bakole with a full camp. Joe knows it too. He's a different animal with a full camp in him. I knew he could give him problems from the first few rounds, but he got hit with a very unusual punch. By the letter of the law, an illegal punch to the top of the head. But we had no complaints about it. We did what we did. Martin was very, very rewarded. He has made his family comfortable for life, and he has a guarantee for his next fight and further fights. It was a win-win for us. So no complaints, but seemingly complaining about it to some extent. Let me know what you think of that. Tony Yoka has somehow managed to get another fight with Canal, or the French broadcaster. He will be facing Arslan Yallyev, the Russian fighter, in May at the Adidas Arena in Paris. So you've had Tony Yoka trying to reinvent his career, trying to reinvigorate it after he had a number of losses in a row. The Olympic champion of 2016, he lost to Martin Bakole, then he lost to Carlos Takam, then he lost to it was that former cruiserweight Riyad Murhi. So Yoka, on the way back, he had been with Black Box Promotions, Lamar Scott. Not sure what's happening there, if this is separate from it or as part of it, but he will be back on French TV. And Arslan Yallyev, one of these Russian fighters in the late sort of 2010s there, I was keeping an eye on, and he managed to have a few different decent fights around 2020, but I think with the pandemic and a couple of other things related to Russia, Ukraine, etc., I think that's kind of stymied his career to some extent. So he sort of drifted off the radar, but still unbeaten, 16-0, 10 knockouts. Not a huge puncher, but got decent skills, decent size, 6'5". Tony Yoka, if he's on top, he feels in control, he's confident, but if you put it on him, he can go into a shell and seemingly doesn't like it and can be beaten. Yallyev, probably this is going to be the best time to ever get Yoka, but does he have the wherewithal to put it on Yoka and have the success? Well, this is why we have the fight. So in May, the 17th of May at the Adidas Arena in Paris. And rounding out this video, we've got Viktor Vykhryst, aka Viktor Faust, versus Rydell Booker. That has been made for the 5th of April. So you might remember Viktor Vykhryst, or aka Viktor Faust. He was on a number of PBC cards over 2022, 2023. Had a very good fight with Lenier Pero. Ended up getting stopped in that one late on. He's still making his way back from that, but the comment here, the post says that Faust wants to fight back to the top. Well, he never made it to the top, but he was still a decent prospect. So we'll have to see, can he actually make a mark? It's been a bit quiet for him in the past year or so, so good to see him back. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.